Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our newest edition of United We Learn. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Kelker, president of Your United Way, and today we are sharing our successes from 2020. During our program, please ask questions using the chat option. We will wrap up in 15 minutes, and United Way staff will stay on to address any questions. If you're watching the recorded version and have a question, please send them to feedback@uwcil.org. Joining me today to discuss this work is Jared Brown, our Director of Resource Development, Katrina Hayes, our Director of Community Impact, and Mitch Baker, our Community Impact Manager. Every day, people in our community face personal and social crises: homelessness, hunger, addiction, limited educational supports, or the inability to access quality health care. United Way and our funded partners and supporters like you surround these tough problems, and we fight. We fight to make the lives of every person in our community better by supporting their basic needs and working with them to improve their educational, financial stability, and health, because we believe every person should have the opportunity for a better life. At the beginning of last year, we had no idea how this year was going to go. Events were canceled, businesses shuttered, and our community's workers started losing much needed wages and tips. With schools closed, families had to choose between expensive and limited childcare or cutting hours at work. And children who rely on free and reduced priced breakfasts and lunch at schools risked going hungry. The pandemic has shown us all that we can come together when it matters most. And because of your support, we were able to help the most vulnerable in our community.
So 2020 was definitely a busy year for your local United Way. Like every organization, the pandemic had a tremendous impact on our operations. And at the very beginning of the pandemic, we responded by launching the COVID-19 Response Fund in partnership with the Community Foundation for the Land of Lincoln. We also adapted to be able to conduct our annual campaign at a time when much of our workforce was working from home and when many companies were facing monumental challenges of their own. And despite those challenges, and thanks to the efforts of our volunteers, we raised more than $2.8 million to support our community through the COVID Response Fund and our annual campaign. In past years, United Way and its partners have responded to natural disasters and other local events through specialized fundraising drives. But like most companies and organizations, we never envisioned a situation like we faced last year. Our partnership with the Community Foundation for the Land of Lincoln enabled us to deploy resources to community-based organizations at the front line of the coronavirus spread. Together, we distributed more than $905,000 in emergency funding to 80 local organizations. And it's important to note that many of those grants were to organizations which then used those funds to directly distribute food and PPE to dozens of other social service organizations. So we're incredibly thankful for all the generous donors to our COVID-19 fund. Now, the importance of our volunteers, donors, and companies who support the United Way campaign was even more important this past year than what it has ever been. And we'd like to take this opportunity to thank thank our campaign chairs, Frank and Peggy Lynch, our Leaders Guild chairs, Scott and Colleen Germerod, and our community builders chairs, Amy and Dave Beadle, along with our entire campaign cabinet, our resource development committee, all of our employee campaign coordinators, and of course our loaned executives who helped us run this past year's campaign. You know, you guys really did raise your hands this year and took on one of the most challenging campaigns in our community's history.
When I think of United Way, I am deeply appreciative of our work with our funded partners, and in 2020, they put in a lot of extra work. These programs were serving people who have never had to use local services before and adapted to the ever-changing environment, including navigating the COVID-19 guidelines of each of their sectors. Last year, because of COVID-19, we saw a significant number of families and individuals struggling to address their most basic needs. Community services like our food programs were in extremely high demand, and calls for help were pouring into our 211 call center. This year stood out to me to one where I felt so thankful that we were able to provide a service like 211 for our local community. Because of the trained specialists responding to callers' inquiries 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with multilingual and hearing impaired capabilities, I had the confidence that if my neighbors needed information on where to go, they were able to find help through 211. The top 5 calls coming into 211 were rent assistance, utilities, shelter, food pantries, and calls for general financial assistance. We saw basic needs programs provide more than 80,000 meals than the year prior, and emergency shelters adapted from overnight services to 24/7 shelter in place, serving more than 1,200 people. As a whole, our programs provided 483,000 plus meals and more than 30,000 nights of shelter. And as many of you navigated the decisions of our local school boards across our 9 local school districts and worked to balance childcare, remote learning, and employment, so did our education programs. And it was so amazing to see how they rose to the challenge. Our education programs found a way to keep their kids engaged and started doing weekly family check-ins and home drop-offs to provide necessary supplies and food boxes to help reduce social isolation. Even with the barriers and changes our children faced this year, children served within our education programs still saw growth in reading and math and made great strides in their social emotional skills. 72% of students served by our year-round education programs improved their social emotional skills. 73% of students increased their skills in math, and 71% showed growth in reading. During a time of rapid change and uncertainty, it is truly inspiring to see the relationships our programs create with the children and families they serve. And we cannot forget to acknowledge the 363 trained volunteers who supported these programs, these children, and these families, even during a pandemic. In 2020, we were privileged to introduce the release of the ALICE report, which was the result of a statewide partnership across Illinois United Ways. Standing for asset limited, income constrained, and employed, this landmark report has allowed us to take a deeper look at the income needed to live stably in our community. The ALICE report continues to shine a light on the families in our community who pre-COVID were a paycheck away from financial disaster, and now we're needing help in ways they never thought they would need. Thanks to our financial stability programs, 806 people had the supports they needed to access and maintain housing, which we know is so important. And nearly 72% of clients were able to overcome barriers to employment, even though the job market dramatically changed. Lastly, we all know that over the last year, the health of our neighbors and the healthcare system itself became the center of the global conversation. The challenges our community faced in the areas of health before the pandemic did not go away, and instead grew tremendously. Because of you, programs in our health area, though, were able to rise to the challenge and help clients navigate a new and socially isolating world. More than 1,000 people were supported in accessing primary healthcare services, and 80% of clients accessing mental health services were able to maintain their treatment plan even through the pandemic. Without you, the programs we support and the people they serve would not have had access to the critical relationships they needed to navigate this tough year. And for that, we thank you. To tell us more about the impact you made through the giving of your time and talent, I will turn it over to Mitch Baker, our Community Impact Manager.
Thanks, Katrina. So give, advocate, volunteer. Our call to action in 3 words that we saw each of you live out this past year, and we are so grateful that you did. Though 2020 did present some unique challenges, you helped us do some amazing things, from mock interviews and a food drive for local food pantries, to a community-wide baby shower for Minnie O'Byrne and the Parent Place. For each opportunity we presented through our issue-based volunteer events, you showed up in a big way. Thanks to you, we were able to make 197 handmade masks, collect 3,775 diapers, write over 1,700 letters of encouragement to local seniors and students, and collected over 3,000 pounds of food. That's more than a literal ton of support. Now, we have continued to find and support unique opportunities for you and your friends and neighbors to get involved. So I invite you to continue visiting our volunteer website, Get Connected, to find more ways to stay engaged. John?
Thanks, Jared, Katrina, and Mitch. To close us out, I want to highlight one last success from the prior year. Our Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is a program we administer in alignment with our educational work that provides one free book each month to the home of a child from birth to age 5. And as of December, more than 700 children were waiting to receive their first book. And then something incredible happened. Just before Christmas, we received an anonymous gift to support the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library program. Those children are now registered and received their first book in February. Local families have been sending in heartfelt thank yous and photos of their kids with their first books. We are forever grateful to this donor, and for us, this was the perfect way to end 2020. United Way of Central Illinois has continued to ramp up its efforts to support basic needs, education, financial stability, and health of people in our community. When you make an investment in United Way, your gift stays local, helping people in our community, and goes directly to program services. From Sojourn Shelter and Senior Services of Central Illinois to Springfield Urban League, we are ensuring our neighbors have what they need. Your gifts expand this work and make it possible for more people to achieve their dreams. These were just a few of the many successes we saw last year, and I invite you to check out our 2021 Community Impact Report to understand the full scope of your impact. 2021 has gotten off to a great start, and we are excited to see where it takes us. We are thankful to have partners and supporters like you, and we can't wait to see what we can achieve together. Whether through a workplace giving campaign, personal gift, or through one of our volunteer events, we look forward to working together as our community and annual campaigns recover and come back stronger than ever. On our next United We Learn, we will take a closer look at 211, our information and referral hotline, because it is more than just a number, and we want you to know how it works and what goes on behind the scenes for this critically important service. We will keep the session open for a few minutes to address any questions that have been posted in chat. And before we do, I want to thank Mitch for dropping information in chat about this weekend's Day of Action. Any questions we don't get to in the next few minutes will be addressed on our website. I want to thank you, wish you a happy Friday and a wonderful weekend,